What happens when an athlete tells a truth so raw, so undeniable, that the only way for a failing organization to respond is to silence her? You're looking at the answer. On September 7th, 2025, the Chicago Sky didn't just bench Angel Reese, they suspended her for making statements detrimental to the team. The media ran with it, painting her as a disruptive force, a chaotic personality undermining her own franchise. But for the narrative analysts watching, moments like these are never what they seem. This wasn't a punishment for bad behavior. This was retaliation for exposing a fatal weakness. Today, we're going to connect the dots and prove that the Chicago Sky suspended Angel Reese not because she lied, but because she told the absolute truth about their failures, and they couldn't handle it. We'll show you the confidential survey and the explosive quotes from league insiders that the Sky tried to bury, and expose how this one moment of honesty reveals everything wrong with one of the WNBA's most dysfunctional organizations. This is the kind of deep dive analysis we live for. So if you believe the story behind the story is what truly matters, show your support and smash that like button. It's a simple click, but it tells us we're on the right track and fuels our next investigation into the narratives the league would rather keep hidden. All right, let's get into it. The entire firestorm ignited with one interview. On September 3rd, 2025, after a brutal season, Angel Reese sat down with the Chicago Tribune and spoke with the unfiltered frustration of a born winner, trapped on a losing team. The Sky were finishing the season with a dismal 10-33 record, and Reese had had enough. She didn't spout cliches. She didn't give a media-trained, sanitized answer. She delivered a public ultimatum to the front office. She said, and I quote, "I'm not settling for the same expletive we had this year. We have to get good players. We have to get great players. That's a non-negotiable for me." That was the truth bomb. For any competitor, for any fan watching the team flounder, this statement was just facts. It was a cry for help, a demand for competence from a superstar who was holding up her end of the bargain, averaging nearly 15 points and over 12 rebounds a game in her sophomore season. But to the Chicago Sky front office, this wasn't a star player demanding a winning culture. It was an act of defiance, and their response was swift, brutal, and stunningly self-destructive. Just 4 days later, the organization officially suspended Reese for the first half of a game, citing statements detrimental to the team. They punished their best player for publicly demanding that the team get better. Let that sink in. The message was clear. In Chicago, loyalty to the organization's image, however flawed, was more important than the desire to actually win basketball games. Now, what makes this suspension so revealing is the stark contrast in how Angel Reese's passion is handled by different leaders. Let's filter out the noise from the Chicago front office and look at how her coach in the Unrivaled league, Nola Henry, responded when Reese was ejected from a game earlier that year. Did she call her a distraction? No. She defended her, telling the media, players are super competitive, and at times that makes them a little bit emotional. I understood her frustration completely. One coach sees a competitor whose frustration is understandable. The other organization sees a threat who must be silenced. What does that tell you about where the real problem is? Let me know your take in the comments. This brings us to the core of the investigation. Were Reese's comments truly detrimental, or were they just true? Let's connect the dots with the evidence the Sky doesn't want you to see. First, the team's performance. They finished the 2025 season with a 10-33 record. That's not a matter of opinion, it's a fact. A demand for great players isn't an insult, it's a diagnosis of a failing team. But the story doesn't end there. Okay, now we're getting into territory the mainstream media barely touched. An unnamed WNBA executive, speaking to the Dallas Hoops Journal, was even more blunt. This executive said, "She needs to get the hell out of there. Chicago is probably the worst-run organization in the league. You're going to suspend your best player just because she's putting pressure on you to get better. That was embarrassing to see." embarrassing." That's a direct quote from a league insider. And if you think that's just one person's opinion, here is the smoking gun. According to a confidential 2025 survey, WNBA players, Reese's own peers across the league, rated the Chicago Sky as the least effectively managed organization in the entire WNBA. This wasn't just Angel Reese's frustration, this was a league-wide consensus. Her detrimental statement was the absolute, verifiable truth, confirmed by her fellow players. She wasn't an outlier, she was the only one brave enough to say it out loud. And this is why the competitor narrative, that she was also fired from Unrivaled, is so dishonest. It's a calculated lie designed to build on the chaos that Chicago created. But the facts tell a very different story. On October 1st of 2025, Unrivaled's general manager, Clare Duwelius, issued a public statement. She confirmed the league still had 2 open roster spots and that they were in productive negotiations with a few players who just needed a little extra time. Productive negotiations is the polar opposite of being fired. The entire premise of the other video is a fabrication, directly contradicted by the league itself. The fired from Unrivaled narrative isn't just a mistake. It's a smokescreen. It's a convenient fiction designed to hide the real story, which is far more damning for the Chicago Sky. The real story is that Angel Reese isn't a liability looking for a job. She is a global brand and a cultural force. This is the reigning Defensive Player of the Year in Unrivaled, a player whose signature Reebok shoe sold out in minutes, and the first professional athlete ever chosen to walk the runway for Victoria's Secret. She publicly stated her side job pays me 7 figures, embarked making her WNBA salary almost an afterthought. Angel Reese doesn't need the Chicago Sky. The truth is, the Chicago Sky desperately needs her. So, when we filter out all the noise and connect all the dots, the picture is undeniable. The Chicago Sky suspension wasn't about discipline. It was an act of pure desperation from a front office exposed as the worst-run organization in the league. They couldn't refute her claims, so they chose to punish her for making them. They tried to make her the villain to distract from their own incompetence, but they failed. They didn't silence a disgruntled player. They proved her right in front of the entire world and revealed the exact weakness she had the courage to call out in the first place. So what's your take on all this? Was the suspension a necessary disciplinary move by the Chicago Sky to maintain locker room order? Or was it a cowardly act of retaliation against a star player for telling the truth? Let us know your verdict in the comments below. If you believe, like we do, that the real story is never the official one, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. We are constantly tracking these power plays behind the scenes, and you'll want to be the first to know what we uncover next. And finally, if you know a fan who only saw the headlines and not the truth behind them, share this video. Every narrative analyst deserves to be in on the real conversation.